School Board meeting Monday, September 13th, 2021. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have over a special presentation for audit.
Okay, thank you. So each of you received a draft financial statement tonight, and the draft financial statement is in draft until the audit committee makes a recommendation to the Board of Education for acceptance. And this financial statement is due to the State of New York, Office of Controller, State Education Department, and the federal government by October 15th. So we have a lot of time to act on this. The report starts with page 1 and 2, and as a profession, we attach opinions to management's financial statements. And at the bottom of page 1, we say, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly. That is an unmodified opinion. That is the highest opinion we have as a profession. Some people call this a clean opinion. That would be slang. So basically, the numbers present fairly. After that first opinion, on pages 3 through 11, you have what is called management discussion and analysis. And management discussion and analysis came along with GASB, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, number 34. And it said all governments must present an MD&A and full accrual financial statements. But in doing this, New York State does not allow us to keep our books on a full accrual basis of accounting. We keep it on a modified accrual. So pages 3 through 11, and then over to 12. But I'll just say on page 8 is one thing that did come out positive out of the MD&A, is they wanted school districts or governments to have something other than just words and numbers. So they came up with pie charts, and you can see that at the top chart, our revenue, 61% basically comes from state aid, 29% from property taxes, so that's the majority of our aid. And on the bottom chart, you can see that we spend 71% of all of our dollars on instruction itself. So that is something that came out of the MD&A, or out of, that's useful, I feel. After that, if you turn to page 12, now, if you look all the way to the bottom of page 12, you see a big deficit number, net position, and our district has a net position deficit of $31 million. So that is on the full accrual basis of accounting. And what causes this is we have to study our post-employment benefits every year. And we have, through contracts, guaranteed health insurance for retirees and current employees. So in the middle of that page, there's a big number, $53,608,000, other post-employment benefits. That is what the future health insurance is going to cost this district based on the contracts in place. Now, as I said, New York State does not allow us to account in our books on this basis, and they do not allow us to fund that liability. So it grows each year, and all 26 school districts that we do, and all 5 BOCES all have a negative net position at this time. The more important page is page 14. So page 14 is modified accrual, and I just told you that, we're deficit of $31 million in the previous page, and here our total fund balance is $4.7 million. So that's really a big difference. But this is how we have to account. And the first column is the general fund. The general fund accounts for almost all of the activity in the school district. And you see we have $5.6 million in assets, $939,000 in liabilities. The difference is fund balance. Fund balance can be 5 categories in school districts. We don't have one of them because New York State has said you can't have committed funds. So we have 4. The first one, non-spendable inventory, well, that's only usually in the school lunch fund because it's the amount of food or paper supplies that we had left over at June 30th. It's not in the form of cash. Then you see we have restricted funds. We have a reserve for debt service. That's over in the debt service fund. I'll talk about that in a second. We have a workers' comp reserve. That can be used to pay for expenses related to workers' comp. Then we have an ERS reserve. That can be used to offset a spike in the ERS retirement system. We have retirement contribution for TRS. Now, that can be 2% of the TRS salaries for each of the prior year and can never exceed 10% in total. And then you see the word assigned. So assigned in a school district is two different things. At the end of June, there were a small amount of encumbrances. Those are purchase orders that have not been fulfilled. Those automatically roll over and increase the budget that the taxpayers approved. And the remaining almost $1.2 million is the amount of money we're giving back to the taxpayers to balance the budget. So the budget has been voted on in May. It's an expenditure budget. We feel our revenues will be about $1.2 million less than that expenditure budget. So that's how we get to the assigned fund balance. And then unassigned is 2.5 million, and you'll actually see that's a comment in the management letter. At this time, it does exceed the 4% allowed by Real Property Law 1318. And when we get to the management letter, as in the past, within 90 days of acceptance of the report, there will have to be a written reply to how to comply with the management letter. So all in all, the district is very healthy from a modified accrual basis of accounting. The second column is special aid fund. You see that the total fund balance comes to 0, and that is because it's grant driven. We expend the money, and then we request the money back from Title I or 611, 619, those types of grants. The school lunch fund we do have in the management letter also after. You see that there's a total fund balance of a negative $149,000. We're really gonna have to look at this, and after COVID ends, because this was kind of a screwed up year, we'll see if we can't get that to reverse a little bit, but we have to see if we can't get the school lunch fund to at least break even year over year. Because absence of that, the general fund really has to support it, and then if you're putting that in the budget, it takes away from program. The debt service fund has $50,000 in it. The debt service fund currently can be here till 2033. So until you don't have bonded debt, you can have a debt service fund. The next column is the capital fund. That accounts for some bus purchases, and it also accounts for the project that we did. That $37,000 is a little bit of residual money, and as the projects and the buses are closed out, that money will move over to the debt service fund if there still is any around. And then we have CM, Miscellaneous Special Revenue Fund, and this is new this year. GASB 84 said you cannot have a trust and agency fund anymore. So the liabilities that were in trust and agency came over to the general fund. The scholarships, which were in the fiduciary fund, had to go someplace, and they came into this special revenue fund. And you can see that we have about $56,000 available for scholarships at the district. So that's the balance sheet, June 30, 2021, and this is modified accrual, and that is the way we keep our books. And if anybody has any questions, just ask away. Page 16 is the other side of page 14. This would be what we would call an income statement, even though it's got a big title at the top, statement of revenues, expenditures, and other changes in fund balance, governmental funds. So if you look all the way towards the bottom, you see where it says excess deficiency of revenue and other sources, expenditures, and uses. And the general fund, you see the number 633990. That is the amount of monies that revenue exceeded expenditures. Thus, we increased our fund balance by that amount. The second column, you can see that there's 0 fund balance, and it says other change in fund balance. We had to write off some old receivables that were just not collectible in the special aid fund. Then the school lunch fund, you see that it ran at a deficit of $46,911 this year. The deficit fund balance was 102, and now it's 149. Debt service fund, $21 it added. So on $50,000, if you have that in the bank, you earn $21 in today's world. And then the capital fund, you see there's $607. That's just the change in the buying the bus. And then the special miscellaneous revenue, the scholarships, we took in $4,300. We gave out $5,450 in scholarships, so it went down by $1,052. So this fund balance at the end would tie back to page 14 to the balance sheet at year end. So those are probably the two most important pages. After that, we can really skip ahead. Pages 19 to 45 are the notes to the financial statement. And the notes provide detail about the numbers. They provide detail on the accounting policies of the school district. They discuss what is fund balance, and they discuss those retirement reserves that I was talking about, the workers' comp reserve. They also give more detail on the numbers. One thing you have to be careful about when you're reading these notes, a lot of these notes do pertain to the full accrual statements, so they're not as useful to a board member. But they're important. They're in the financial statements, talks about your capital assets, talks about your debt, lays out all your bonds. So that is what the notes to the financial statements do. After that, on page 46, we have two pages that are absolutely required to be in the financial statements. So page 46 is just excellent. So this is the budget for revenue versus what the actual revenue came in at. And you see that the district predicted its revenue to be at the bottom $17,425,623. We took in $17,696,394 plus $270,000. That's an excellent job because you don't want to over budget your revenue. If you do and you spend the entire balance, you wipe out your fund balance quickly. So having a good handle on revenue is very important. And then the next page is also important. This is the expenditures for the general fund. And you can see that the voters approved a budget towards the bottom of $18,852,160. It increased by about 20 grand for purchase orders last year. We spent 17 million, and that is how we basically created our $633,000 of revenues over expenditures for the year. So overall, it's a good job with the general fund. After that, we can go to page 51. So I can just point out that this is in the report on a page itself. So this is supplementary information. That means somebody other than GASB wants it in the report, and in this case, it's OSC. And you can see the bottom section, the calculation of real property law 1318, and you can see that the actual percentage exceeds 4%. So that is where the management letter comment will come from. Okay, then on page 55, so as I said before, we attach opinions to management financial statements. This is the second opinion from Weston Company. And because we do the audit and we do the financial statement, we have to give an opinion if management can do the financial statement. And in this case, it's a clean opinion. There's no issues with the books and records. They're in good shape. We have minor adjustments to make, and nothing really goes bad here at the district, so nothing rose to a level that would make us qualify this report. So it's an unmodified, clean opinion over financial reporting. Then we have on page 57 and 58, the third opinion from Weston Company. And here, again, this is a clean opinion. The reason you have this opinion in your financial statements is because you went over $750,000 in federal aid. And anytime a district or government goes over $750,000 in federal aid, you have to have what's called a single audit. So we performed the single audit, and on page 57, we also say that that is a clean opinion or unmodified opinion. I do want to point out on page 61, because this is the way the government phrases things, and then people look at this page and sometimes they can't understand it, because I just told you the opinions were clean. So if you look down towards the bottom of the page, it says auditee qualified as low risk. And we checked no. We had to check no because you've only had single audits for the past 2 years. And you need to have 3 single audits to get to what's called low risk. It has no bearing on how the books and records are of the district. So next year, since we had no findings in that single audit, and we had no findings in the 2020 single audit, that will be low risk. And all that does is change what we have to audit. In high risk, we have to audit 40% of the special aid fund, and in low risk, we have to audit 20%. And most of the time, we audit way over that because there's only one grant that's the majority of the fund sometimes. So, but that is what that means. I don't want somebody to think you're not low risk after I'm telling you you have nice, clean opinions. Okay, then on page 63 and 64, last set of opinions from Weston Company, and this is about the extra classroom activity funds. So this is required to be audited, and one of the issues with the extra classroom activity funds is it's on the cash basis. So governmental accounting standards and GAAP say that you have to apply accrual basis or modified accrual to have a clean opinion. Here, cash is whatever's deposited in the bank is revenue, whatever the check is written for is the expense. We only audit that portion. We don't audit at the dance. We don't audit at a fundraiser. We don't know if they paid the DJ cash. We don't, not the DJ, but the DJ at the dance, we don't know if they paid him cash out of the gate, which you would want them to deposit the money and write a check. So we audit from when it goes in the bank and when it is deposited in the bank. So that's the reason for the qualification of the opinion. But that is in all 31 of our audits too. So on page 66, we list out all of the clubs, and you see there's about $64,000 in total receipts. Next year, one of the things we are gonna look at when we come back, and because of COVID, we didn't really wanna point this out in management letters, but just a little heads up. Wherever you see 0 receipts and zero disbursements, and they're in several, there's the Dramatics Club, FC, CLA, International Club, Senior Honor Society, Sisters, Ski Club. You see how there's 0 receipts, 0 disbursements. We consider those fiscally inactive. So next year we're gonna look at that. If school stays in session all year, are the kids fundraising? Are they spending? Is there actually a club going on? We don't wanna see the district give a general fund stipend for somebody to have a club that's no activity. So we'll be looking at that next year when we come in. And then on page 68 and 69, we have our management letter. We always talk about the prior year findings. And now these are control things that we found. They don't rise to any level that would cause us to have to modify any opinion. And the first one was about extra classroom. And it was a sales tax incident where we see that they didn't pay sales tax on one of the purchases. Again, the extra classroom is subject to sales tax. They're subject to profit and loss statements. They're subject to inventory controls. It's meant to be a teaching tool. They're not the school district. So we point that out, and every school district also has management letter comments. The second comment on page 69 was about the school lunch fund deficit. We're gonna have to look at that and see how we can bring that in line. The third comment, unassigned fund balance exceeding the 4%, we know that's still there. And in disbursement testing, we see some missing signatures in the voucher packages and a couple purchase orders after the invoice date. We always like to see the purchase order prior to the invoice date because technically the purchasing agent has to approve the purchase order, so how could the invoice arrive before they approved that? And then we only have one comment for the current year, and that's accounting for GASB 84, so GASB 84 was what I said, took away your trust and agency fund. Well, we came here and Kelly still had some balances in trust and agency fund, so that needs to go away for 21, 22, and that's where we have that new special CM fund. So that is the audit, the management letter, quick kind of overview, but if there's any questions or any thoughts, but really the books and records are in good shape. Yes?
What you just went over prior year findings, 1 through 4, that
Yes.
was last year's findings?
Yes.
But you're just reminding us?
Well, we tell you that what the update is to them. So we're saying, yes, we had a prior year finding that the 4%, we're over 4%. We still have that finding. We're giving you the update. And so next year, the accounting for GASB 84 will say status, this condition is corrected, because we already know it's corrected.
Okay.
But, and if you know, the disbursement testing, if we don't see any incidents where the PO is over or where there's some missing signatures, that'll say corrected, and then it will leave the report.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else have any other questions in regards to the audit report? I want to thank Weston Company again for presenting tonight here. I want to thank Kelly, the business office, our administrators, and this board for, again, another great audit. I mean, we're in good shape.
Yep.
You know, we're doing a good job with, you know, both sides of the budget, our revenues and our expenditures. And you know, I don't think there were any real surprises tonight in this audit, so I'm pleased with where we're at. I'm pleased with where the district is financially, and look forward going forward here.
And we're available to the board anytime, or the audit committee. Kelly can get a hold of us. We can come up and meet with you, or you can email us or call us on the phone. So,
How do we, just one quick question. 46,911 for the lunch. I thought the lunch stuff was free. How are we accumulating such a,
well, the lunch is free. From the CARES Act came up with a summer food program where they're reimbursing the food. But the reimbursements for the food are not exceeding our cost to provide that food. So the government's giving us so much per lunch served, but we have expenditures in the lunch fund, and it's basically employee benefits and then the cost of sales, and they exceed what it is to provide those lunches.
and this is the first we're hearing about this, because we didn't get anything at the end of the year as far as the lunch. We usually get a report for the lunch program.
In terms of lunch report, how do we have a lunch report? Okay, so I'll look for it. I haven't seen one either, Mr. Merkel. So, but in the end of this thing, you know, to build on, just to kind of build on what Mr. Marco asked and the explanation from Wes, is the money is there to pay for the food and the things that we're getting to the kids. It doesn't pay or cover the expenses that it costs to take care of all that, especially when we went remote, the workers we needed, the different lunchrooms, and all the different things that we had to do, the extra hours for all that. So, you know, in the end, it does become a cost in terms of doing what was required, with really no way of avoiding it, to be quite honest, because we had to fill that mandate. So, you know, if they want us to deliver food and to have food available and do all the different things that were being asked of us, we had to, you know, do what you got to do at that point.
So, to work on getting these hopefully cleared next year, do we have to have different discussions on each of these, or?
So, you know, what you can go in, the 4%, you know, question that's on there is,
That's I just have to point out real property law 1318. We have many districts that exceed the 4%. That is a board decision where you feel comfortable. You do have a lot of room in reserves to put money into. You could reduce your 4% in a heartbeat if you wanted to. You could add to your TRS reserve. You could add to your ERS reserve. There's also other reserves. If you're ever going to do another capital project, you can ask the voters for a capital reserve. So there's a lot of room there. Do you work with Dr. Timms?
yep.
Yeah, so Dr. Timms, he works with a lot of districts. talks about reserves and reserve planning. But that's not a hard one to get around if you wanted to. But like I said, we have many districts. And in all of the years, this is probably my 27th or 28th year of auditing school districts, there's never been any issue with being over the 4%. Yes, it's a comment, yes, they point it out sometimes if the comptroller comes, but really, 4% is not a lot of money when, you know, somebody moves into your district and requires a lot of services or things of that nature.
In regards to some of the other things, you know, the invoice versus the purchase order, we've had that discussion together with that, where that's happened at times. You know, we're working to make sure that doesn't happen. It happens very infrequently, quite honest, but, you know, there are some things we're trying to fix with that, making sure those POs are created prior to the company billing us for anything that we're doing.
In the extra classroom comment, we have them in all of our schools. It's very difficult to eliminate them because when we select our test, it's always different students every year, it's different clubs, and inevitably somebody doesn't pay sales tax on a purchase. But anything that the board members or I or the public would pay tax on at Walmart or Target or wherever, those kids have to pay tax on that also for extra classroom. It's not exempt as a school district like we are as a school district. We're exempt from paying sales tax.
In these clubs that we run and the fundraising, the kids are in charge of them, they run them, so it's an educational time, so I'm not gonna sit here and say that it'll never happen, some kid won't charge, you know what I mean, and they won't pick that out, but in general, we teach them those things, try to get them to make sure that all that's done, and so far, that's part of the whole, you know, the education of their funds and managing them and those kinds of things.
Any other questions? Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you. And anytime anybody has any questions, just get a hold of us through Kelly and you come up for, you guys can email us or call us on the phone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, administration reports. Mr. Wright?
So the start of the school year went pretty smooth so far. Bus dismissal, the teachers are still bringing the kids out on the elementary side, that's working well. High school was a little late getting out, but that's getting better. The kids are used to dismissing out the sports store, which is a little different than in the past. So staffing stuff, I have 2 staff members now that are quarantined in the bus garage, which affected DOT was going to be here Wednesday, so that's been postponed now until the 23rd. In the speed reduction out front, the letter's been sent into the state with the meeting minutes from the town of Newport. I'm just waiting to hear. Someone told me they do an investigation, so I'm assuming that that's going to take some time still. But as soon as I have an update on that, I'll give you guys an update.
Any questions for Mr. Wright? Great. Mr. Broadbent?
You know, the first week of school went really well. You know, the teachers, the students were all great. We have a lot of kids back who haven't really been in school for a year and a half, but they're transitioning well. We have a number of new teachers, and I've heard a lot of good comments from students. You know, they're excited about the classes. They're excited to be back working with other students, moving around the school normally, playing sports. So it's a real good start to the school year. A Parent Square invite went out. It's a communication device app that we're using. We're going to send out another invite probably in the next week or so to try to get parents involved. We're going to use this for a number of things: attendance calls, parents be able to text back and forth with the teachers. A lot of good stuff. So that'll be implemented in the next few weeks. Teachers are getting their Google Classrooms ready in case kids have to go virtual. We've had a few so far. But that's working pretty smoothly because we've been doing it for a year and a half now. And really there's not a lot since the last meeting other than just initial school stuff.
Any questions?
Yeah, did we get a student handbook? Copy of the student handbook?
I can go get you one when you go to next executive session.
Do I typically give you that, Mr. Kemmler? I'm sorry if I
Yeah,
don't.
we got it.
Yeah, we got it.
Well,
Are you talking code of conduct? Is that what you're-
No, we used to get a copy of the student handbook, which was given to the students.
I'll get you each a copy when you go to executive session.
No, my question is there a policy in that handbook for the usage of phones?
Is there a policy? Yes. I believe so.
There is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Currently, they're allowed to use them in study halls, cafeteria, and quickly in the hallways. They're not allowed to use them in class. Each teacher did a syllabus this year, which was distributed to every student and sent home for parents to sign. Every one of those, I went through and looked at them, and they have the cell phone policy in their syllabus as well.
Do we have the same policy in the elementary school?
Yeah, mine's a little stricter in elementary. They're not supposed to take the phones out of the book bags unless there's an emergency.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
How about mask breaks? Is the high school getting mask breaks when feasible?
So we're doing our best to give kids mask breaks. Lunch, they're able to take their mask off. When they're outside, they take them off. And if we're able to keep that 6-foot distance, they are taking some mask breaks in the classroom. However, to get everybody here, our classrooms, as you see it in the walk around, range anywhere from about 3.5 feet to 10 feet, depending on the room. But probably most of them are right around 5.5 feet.
Can I just add, so I know there's been some questions in regards to mask breaks and things like that, and us as administrators were talking about that. I think it was important to get us transitioned into the building under the requirement, because the requirement is that, we are to have masks in the school. That got sent down right at the last second, so, and that was different than the opening presentation. So getting us established in here as we work through some of the meetings. We've had some recent meetings with public health. Mr. Broadbent mentioned the cafeteria. We weren't sure with the cafeteria with the eating, but we have dividers up in there, and the dividers are allowing us to take masks off in there, so now they don't have to, even after they're done eating, they can keep those off. So we're starting to work our way through. We're starting to do some every other row things where we're too tight. So even in a room where, as Mr. Broadbent mentioned, we might only be able to get to 3.5, we still have people that could be 6 feet apart taking some breaks, so we're doing some every other row. I know Mrs. Holmes is doing that. Our elementary, has a little more freedom to do that. We're spaced out a little bit better over in those areas. Most classes in the high school have that opportunity to do that, and as we get going here and moving along here, I think mask breaks can become more of an opportunity for us. But getting in here and trying to keep the kids in school and keep them safe has been the initial priority in here. And then, we can kind of go from there and see how things are going. So, I know, and I think the questions are coming, because I think parents, want mask breaks. There might be some times where there's been some discussion over whether we're getting enough mask breaks and things like that. So I think we're aware of those issues, and we definitely want to provide a safe environment, but on the same token, we want to make sure that, kids are, getting their breaks from that as well, so.
Ms. Holmes?
Yeah, so the beginning of the year was very similar to the way we closed out. So the kids came in, they were already familiar with all the routines. We didn't have any issues at all with them coming in. We were able to put together a team. One of our DSIP goals for the year is to implement the Orton Gillingham that we've been talking about so much. So I've got a team of intervention specialists and special ed teachers that are assessing all the kids in K2 right now to see what they need, and then we're going to start the RTI program building off from that. All the students, staff have been assigned their one-on-one devices. They've set up their Google Classrooms. In K2, we use the Seesaw accounts. Those are all set up and ready to go. We pushed out the invitations to parents through email to sign up for the Parent Square. Our dismissal is running exactly like it was last year, so we haven't had any issues at all with dismissal or arrival. And like Mr. Shepherdson said, we have frequent mask breaks throughout the day. Went in and made sure that the majority of those classes, so if they have 16 or less, we were able to get all of those desks 6 feet apart, so they're taking frequent mask breaks. And the biggest class I have is 17 kids, so during the mask breaks, we just make sure that we push one of those desks, a little bit further up toward the front. Because of the smart board, we have to put them so that they can see when they've got the masks on. But that's very few classes. I think I've only got 4 classes with 17. And kindergarten is up to 40 students as of right now, so we've got full classes going on in there as well, 13 to 14 kids each.
Any questions? Mr. Doherty?
Yep, so fall sports, they're up and running at this point. We just had a football game here this weekend where we beat Weedsport. Congratulations to our girls varsity soccer team. They won the boosters tournament this weekend. We had 7 soccer games and a football game going on. I want to say thank you to the boosters for doing a great job managing the concessions, t-shirts, and awards. I also want to take a moment to congratulate the girls swim team. They beat Holland Patton, which I don't know how long it's been since they beat Holland Patton, but it's definitely the first time they've done it since I've been doing this job for 7 years. So that was a big, huge win for them. The new football uniforms came in. The kids seemed very pleased with them. Team picks for the, so the football team and the cheerleaders already did their team picks because they do a program for football, but all the rest of the sports pictures will go off on September 21st. Looking at winter sports, still no word on indoor spectators. Right now we have people coming in for swim meets. They have masks on when they're sitting inside, but we haven't heard anything yet for like high-risk indoor sports during the winter, which means we still have no word on indoor track, but I know that they're requiring vaccinations for their students at Utica, so I don't know what that's going to look like as far as, you know, a bunch of high school kids that are unvaccinated, so I think that's still very much in the air, whether or not there will be an indoor track and field season. Girls basketball uniforms are ordered. Boys modified basketball uniforms are in the final stage of approval for that. I've mentioned this before, but we will be adding a tip-off boosters tournament for girls basketball this year. Teams Brookfield, Sherburne, and Westmo. The boys holiday tournament will continue on. It'll be right after Christmas this year. It'll be Holland Patton, CBA, and Adirondack. Before that was a question mark, the last team there. We were looking at possibly Unitago, but we were able to get Adirondack to confirm to that. And then the only other thing I have, I mentioned to you that we did receive the second grant from the Wattis Foundation, but when that had originally gone through, I had also applied for this other grant through the Aspen Institute, and I just got word last week that we've been selected as one of 3 national finalists for that. So coming up on the 29th of September, I've got a 2-hour interview with the panelists there, where the other 2 finalists will be there, and I have to present our plan and how we reimagine school sports, and hopefully, you know, fingers crossed, we can come through on that as well too. So I'll know more, obviously, for the next board meeting on that. That's all I got. Any questions?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
You knew I was going to have a question.
Sure.
You know the big purple sheet that come out?
Yeah.
Are we playing Tupper Lake in football?
We are not playing Tupper Lake.
We are not?
We are not.
Okay. Because there was questions on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Basketball.
Mm-hmm.
I notice we're now invading section 4.
As far as, yes, we are.
We haven't got enough teams around section 3 to play, that we got to go to section 4?
Well, we don't have to go to section 4. That was something Coach Smith was looking to do because that's where he had gone to high school. But the other thing I will tell you is that it is increasingly difficult to find teams around here that want to compete because the way sectionals are seated, it's very, very difficult to get teams that are our size or bigger than us that are willing to play us.
I want to add,
Where-
isn't that game at Colgate?
It is at Colgate, yeah. We're not going all the way down
It's a
there.
Colgate University Invitational. There's more than one game there. It's like the Utica College games. This one's at Colgate.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Unitigo is at Utica College?
Colgate.
At Colgate.
At Colgate.
Or is
Yes.
that Delaware Academy?
Or Delaware
Where
would be
is
there. yeah,
Delaware
yeah.
Academy?
That's Delhi.
That's Delhi.
Delhi. Is that at Utica College or?
That's the one.
Colgate?
I can go pull that off for you right now. I just don't want to tell you one thing and then tell you something wrong 2 seconds later. So
Is this for a basketball tournament?
it's for boys basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tournament?
Mhm.
Oh,
Okay. But was there any particular reason why the schedule of football and of the boys and girls soccer was not in the newsletter?
I thought they were in the newsletter. The tournament schedule for soccer?
No.
No, the full
The
schedule.
schedule, the regular schedule wasn't in there. There was no schedules at all. People are going crazy
Right. I can look into that, and I thought those had sent those along, but
because we've always had it in the past.
yeah. If they weren't there, then that's 100% on me there. If they didn't find their way into that.
That's what happens when old people get patterned, you know? You got a pattern. We like everything the way, you know.
Well, the football changed a lot anyway, didn't it?
About
So
5
that's
different
something.
times up until just the other day with Sequoia moved to 8-man
But
football.
different anyway.
I think a lot of the sports, they're changing, like I've seen soccer, they keep changing
Well, there's lots of soccer changes going on, and those continue to change because they just don't have enough officials to do the game. So every day, like I just found out yesterday, I had to move a boys modified soccer game because they don't have officials to do it, so.
So there's, I mean, kind of go on the website for that stuff, right?
Yeah, that stuff. In Schedule Galaxy, they're always, as soon as that change gets made, it automatically pushes out to that.
Yeah, that's a great app. I downloaded it the other day. I really like it.
Any other questions?
Maybe we should just push out that Schedule Galaxy.
Yep.
So that parents can
Mm-hmm.
be more aware of it. Other than word of mouth, you know.
All right, a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I have 2 questions.
Oh, you do? Sorry.
Page 6 of the warrants. Painting of the lines. Did we ever paint the curbs in front of the building that are yellow? They used to be yellow. Do we still do that? Because they're not yellow now.
They're granite now.
What?
They're granite now.
Oh.
They were cement when we painted them yellow.
What is the situation with, put out for bids? What amount does it have to be? What is it up to?
Over 30. Has to
Over
be-
30,000?
Has to be bid.
Well, I think that's a pretty high thing for just white lines, I'll tell you. And then my other thing was, I'll tell you, page 10. Just, it says WB Mason, doesn't say anything what it is. Hello. Does anybody know what that was for?
Those would be supplies for, the first one would be maintenance supplies, and the second one, the third one would be elementary supplies.
What kind?
Classroom
Office,
supplies,
classroom supplies.
pens, pencils, papers.
That's all I have, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. I saw Janine first. Sarah second, all in favor? Motion to go into executive session for the appointment of personnel matters, including review and appointment of employees and contract a motion to approve the resignation of Michelle Putney, part-time food service worker, effective September 13th, 2021.
I'm gonna say seven.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, September 7th, 2021. Sarah first. Jessica second, all in favor? No? All in favor, okay,
No.
sorry. Oh, no.
I thought you said no.
Oh, yeah,
I vote
and
no.
one no. Oh, okay.
One no?
Motion to approve, rescind Todd Hoban, head coach, modified football, step 5 of the extracurricular index of the teacher bargaining agreement effective the 2021-2022 school year. Janine first, Jessica second, all in favor? Motion to approve to rescind Betty Saris, assistant coach, modified football, step 5 of the extracurricular index of the teacher bargaining agreement effective 2021-2022 school year. Sarah first, Jessica second, all in favor? Motion to approve to rescind Michael Kerr, volunteer assistant, modified football, effective the 2021-2022 school year. Janine first, Jessica second, all in favor? Appointments. Motion to approve Jordan Schaefer, 1 full-time equivalent cleaner, step 3 of the CSEA bargaining agreement effective September 14th, 2021. 15?
13.
Oh, 13, sorry. Jessica first, Janine second, all in favor? Motion to approve Brianne Parent, faculty mentor per the teacher bargaining agreement effective the 2021-2022 school year. Sarah first, Janine second, all in favor? Motion to approve Kylie Tree, FFA advisor step 1 of the extracurricular index of the teacher bargaining agreement effective 2021-2022 school year. Janine first, Jessica second, all in favor? Motion to approve Caitlin Cook, elementary teacher, 4-year probationary appointment in the tenure area of elementary education at the step 5 of the teacher bargaining agreement effective back to September 1st, 2021. Janine first, Jessica second, all in favor? No? Thank you. All right, audit report. Need a motion to approve the audit report that was presented tonight on the 2020-2021 school year. Janine first, Sarah second, all in favor? Need a motion to approve the West Canada Valley Teachers Association contract for 2021 through 2026. Jessica first, Sarah second, all in favor? Need a motion to approve the State Environmental Quality Review Act and the regulations thereunder by the board to undertake review of potential environmental impacts associated with the project. Need a vote, motion?
I'll give you a little background on all of these. This is your resolution that's in there right now. This is the environmental impact study for the upcoming capital project as part of the process that needs to be done to approve the seeker so they can go through with that. The remaining authorizations are for the companies LaChase Synthesis and Rick Timms, who are our construction management, our architect, and project financial advisors. This is all regular information we already have, but they have to be formally approved in a resolution before we can move this to the vote.
Janine first. Sarah second, all in favor? Motion to approve the proposition of the West Canada Valley School District authorized to renovate and improve various school district buildings and sites not to exceed $4,916,458. And the voting will be on November 9th with polls open between 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. Jessica first. Janine second, all in favor? Need a motion to approve the authorization for LeChase Construction as construction management company for the upcoming project up the road. Sarah first. Janine second, all in favor? Motion to approve authorization of Synthesis Architects as our architects for the upcoming capital project. Janine first. Sarah second, all in favor? Need a motion to approve the authorization of Richard Timms for our project financial advisor. Janine first, Jessica second, all in favor? No? All in favor?
I raised my hand.
Sorry, I didn't see you, it's hard
I
to
don't see
see
everybody else.
from everybody over here. Motion to approve, the administration as the lead evaluators for the 2021-2022 school year, and that is Ms. Holmes and Mr. Broadbent. Sarah first. Janine second, all in favor? Motion to approve the superintendent goals for 2021-2022 school year.
Can I just say something quick about that?
Absolutely.
Okay. I included the goals in here for this year, that align obviously with your board goals that you approved. Before you approve it, I just didn't know if anybody had any questions or anything else in there, that you're, want adjusted on that.
You don't get one, I got two. There we go.
One for each hand.
Any questions? All right, a motion to approve the superintendent goals for 2021-2022. Shauna first. Janine second, all in favor? Thank you. All right, discussion items. DJ, school opening update?
Yeah, so I had our administrators today presented their buildings in terms of the reopening of our schools to all of our students. That's been, in most cases over a year. Last month, for our special meeting on August 30th, we had the special presentation in which I presented where we were going with this school year, some of the mandates, some of the regulations that were in place. Since August 30th and before this meeting today, as many know, the Commissioner and the New York State Department of Health issued new guidance or additional guidance to where the school year was to go. They issued mandates on masks being worn in the school system, especially when 6 feet of distances can't be maintained. They started to issue guidance on vaccinations in terms of vaccinations requirements and vaccination requirements for staff or weekly testing. They also went on to talk in general about keeping kids in school, keeping them here safely, and some adjustments to quarantine procedures in an effort to try to keep as many kids in school as possible while still maintaining the safety. So to summarize all of that, things got a little bit stricter in terms of our mandates than we had on August 30th. So how have we adjusted and what's going forward here? So we've had several meetings locally with our Herkimer County Public Health and so forth. And things are moving forward into a little bit of a different dynamic here in terms of vaccinations and in terms of COVID testing. So the state will be supplying us, which they have not done as of yet, with mouth swab testing for any staff here at any school in New York State, any staff here who are not vaccinated. So we will be collecting proof of vaccinations. Meetings have been held with unions and meetings have been held with our administrators and everybody around. We will be gathering information on who's vaccinated, who is not officially. Then anybody who is not vaccinated, and I'm speaking just on behalf of the staffs at this point, will be required to do weekly testing, which we will provide for them in the district. They can do that on their own and provide the negative results on the weekly, but we will also provide it at no cost here. In addition to that, we are under an obligation, and we are getting the test for this, that with parent permission, on a case-by-case basis, we have to have the capacity to offer free testing to the students here if there are reason to do so. So we will be getting rapid tests for that. They are accepting rapid tests, home tests, and so forth, other types of screening and mouth swab tests. They're accepting those this year, where last year it was all diagnostic and so forth. So we are obligated, no one has to take us up on that. I will be getting that information out as we have it. That is not in place as of right now because tests aren't here yet. So once the tests are here, there is a target date of September 27th, which is the Monday at the end of this month, that we're gonna have these tests and have the capabilities. We may have the rapid test a little bit earlier than the mouth swab tests. And once we get this all in place, get everything organized, until further notice, that will be the case. If there is a first dose or the process is started in terms of the vaccination, they are not required to test, but they will be required to give us proof of the completion. There's two proofs, either the vaccination card or the Excelsior app that some people have. They have to provide that, one or the other, in terms of being vaccinated. If you are vaccinated, you are not part of any of this testing piece. So that's the changes since last month. There is, and I don't usually talk about speculation, but there is some word coming down that there's going to be approval for the younger age kids sometime in October, at least with the Pfizer vaccine. So there may be some adjustments to parents and families in terms of that. Our high school students right now are eligible for that in terms of getting the vaccines. We have offered 2 clinics here over that time for anybody. Vaccination, any of your pharmacies are offering those right now as well, and so forth. So in terms of quarantining, I talked about this, but just to reiterate this, if there is proof of vaccination at this time, if there are no symptoms, you are not required to quarantine in an exposure situation. You're just required to monitor your symptoms. If you are not vaccinated and you are exposed, you are required to quarantine at that point in time. There is a lot less quarantining going on in the classrooms. So we, as we've talked about, that 6-foot radius or the 12-foot square we often use, we have tried to really spread our kids out as best we can and do the mask wearing the best we can, because that helps us with the quarantines. So in a classroom setting, if there are people within that 6 feet, meaning less than 6 feet, they are quarantining the desk in front, the desk behind, and the desk to the right and left. It's a simplistic form. That's saying it's a clean-cut case with no additional symptomatic people in the room and more extensive quarantine that needs to be made. On a bus, they're quarantining anybody that's in your seat, anybody that's to the right or left of you, depending on which side of the bus you're on, and anybody that's to the front and back. End of story, unless there's further information that needs to be established. So, and if the person who has tested positive has not been symptomatic inside the classroom or inside the school, then we no longer have to go back to these asymptomatic people for 48 hours prior to that. So if we send a kid home who's symptomatic, or a staff member or anybody at home that's symptomatic during that school day, and we send them home and they get tested and they test positive, then we have to quarantine off of the symptomatic being in class. If a parent calls us and says that their child started spiking a fever last night, we're not sending them to school. We basically tell them, okay, go get yourself tested at this point in time, go get tested. If they are positive, then the only quarantining at this point in time, pending no other symptomatic situations, is just that child and not the rest of the kids, because those symptoms were not displayed in the school. So in a general sense, it's really important that if there's any sort of concerns or symptomatic type of situations, that we monitor that, maybe keep them home until we can see if it's just allergies or things like that. So that's kind of the changes since last month in terms of the regulations, in terms of the information coming out of the Department of Health. They obviously took a more active role starting just before Labor Day weekend, where the new governor took over and started directing the Department of Health to issue guidance and state education departments and so forth. So a little bit of a change since just our most recent meeting. We had a meeting pretty close to this one, so that's where we stand today. Any questions for me on any of that or anything in regards to school opening in general for this year?
How many do we have unvaccinated in high school, middle school?
In terms of staffing, Mr. Cumberland, I don't know that yet because we're just beginning to collect that data.
Same way for elementary?
Yeah, we gotta collect it. Yeah, we gotta collect it. Yeah. Yep.
We don't, the testing that we have to do on the unvaccinated, do they have to pay for that?
Nope. They're giving us the tests, and we will be swabbing them. They go to Herkimer BOCES via Herkimer College via Syracuse to the lab.
They have to go there.
Yep, so we, once a week, we'll send them down there, and they'll go to the lab in Syracuse, and our nurses will have access to the report as to whether it's positive, negative. They're telling me we'll get the sample results back in 24 to 48 hours.
Who's
I think
funding
it-
these tests?
Who's funding them?
Yeah.
The state of New York? I don't know.
What's happening?
She asked who was funding the tests, and I said the state of New York, I guess, because they're sending them to us, we just don't have them yet.
State of New York with the taxpayers.
Yep. I was trying to be polite about it, state of New York.
Yeah, almost. Now I forgot what I was going to ask you. I don't know. I give up. Oh, last meeting I said something about temperature check coming in the building. Do we do that or we do not do that?
At this stage of the game, we don't, there's no
What?
temperature checking taking place
With
before.
being in the red zone, isn't that a precaution that we could take?
It's not, we could if we wanted to, we haven't done that because, you know, it adds a little bit of an extra dynamic in the morning to us running the regular schedule and then getting on the buses and shortens us up a little bit. I mean, it's not a required like it was last year, precaution, at this point in time. The surveys and stuff are not a required at this point.
I would think safety would take over schedule. They might lose a few minutes at the most. Jesus, come on. The red zone.
And there's, something went home, there's supposed to be self-monitoring also at home.
Yeah, so the requirement is that they're self-temperature checking at home and not sending their kids if there is a temperature at home. You know, if we as a district and all of you collectively in here want us to start implementing that, what that entails is us having nurses at the doors when we come in again, our nurses getting on the buses like we did last year and scanning everybody before they get off the buses. Keeping in mind again, you know, that we'll have more kids on buses, it'll take a little bit of time, so, you know, that's really the only downfall, as I said, you know.
Just keep monitoring what your cases are here locally. If it starts, numbers start going
Yeah, I
up,
mean, so we
might wanna think
started,
about it.
yep, so the Department of Health reporting has to be daily again by me, so that started today again. So we start reporting and we're in constant communication as to where we are in terms of, you know, our positivity rates and our type of things that are going on here. So, you know, our general feeling to start this year was that angle. We didn't have anybody come to school with a temperature last year. We never registered anybody with a temperature last year. The parents and everybody were really good about keeping kids home. The only kids that ever went home with temperatures came about during the day. So that's kind of how we started, but, you know, to answer Mr. Kemmer's question, in terms of that, I mean, it's certainly something that can be done.
How many,
Jesus.
do we have a lot of cases right now, students?
At this point, as we're 5 days in, no, we don't have a lot of cases. I mean, there's cases around, there's been some indirects. I mean, to say we're completely oblivious to COVID here would be not correct. But in terms of positivities, you know, we do have a couple that were there that are positives. You know, we've had a couple direct. Most of ours are still in that indirect from another situation where public health has quarantined somebody because of something that happened outside of the building and so forth. So, but it's there. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's there. You know, you spend time every single day on it. So.
Anything else? Questions about anything?
We put the snow plowing out for bid yet? Don't forget that.
Nope. We got that and the land are both up this year. Yep. Thank you, sir, for reminding us too. Okay. Yeah. So that will go in probably immediately this.
She said she did the ads.
Oh, okay.
I reviewed the ad Friday.
Just thought about it, no, last year
Yep.
we extended it to
Yep.
one.
Yep. So we'll run that. How many days do we have to run for?
30, try to do 30.
30 days. Okay.
All right, announcements, next board meeting is Tuesday, October 12th, for our regular board meeting. Public comment, we welcome any comments that are related to the agenda. We ask that you be respectful of time. We ask that you state your name and where you live. Please remember you cannot identify specific staff, student, personnel, or board persons. If you need to address a specific situation, we ask that you contact the superintendent directly. Do we have any comments?
Well, I just have a couple questions. I don't know if I heard it right. Do you know the number, the percentage of staff that have been vaccinated?
Yeah, so at this point in time, ma'am, we don't, we're collecting that information now that that requirement's in place to do so.
Okay.
We had to get the go-ahead basically to ask that because of confidentiality reasons and things like that. So at this point in time, we'll collect that, and then the list will be compiled of anybody who is not vaccinated, and they'll be required to do weekly testing.
Okay, and then did I hear you say you've got a couple cases of COVID?
Yeah, we've had a couple, yep, we have. Yep, different things. Some of them are indirect, ma'am, like where they were exposed outside of the school, not necessarily positive cases. So a little bit of variation, just a couple of positives though, yes.
But you do have a couple
A
positives?
couple positives, yeah, yep,
That's
we
not
sure
a
do.
bad,
Yep.
it's not a bad number.
Yeah, it's not extensive right now, you know, but it's certainly worth monitoring where we have it in the communities right now, so, for sure.
Absolutely.
Online.